Welcome to another edition of The Manual. It is the manual for you, the playbook on manhood. He is the Professor Alton Woods. I am Chip Rice. Glad to be back with you again. And as usual, we start our podcast off with a little segment called Man Did You See? So, Man Did You See?
You got one today? Because I got one.
You got one? All right, man. What did you see?
Did you see Kyrie Irving flip off the fans in Boston in the first round of the playoffs last night?
Wait, Kyrie?
He
flipped off fans?
Oh my goodness, multiple times.
I wonder. Now, didn't Kyrie just have a game the other night where he was? They were talking about how he had been fasting and he was praying all day and couldn't eat until Sunday. For
Ramadan, that's right.
And how God was all great to him. But now you flipping the fans off in Boston.
Flipping them off.
Just won't stop.
And so I rode a little bit of a roller coaster on this one.
Okay.
Because I'm like, all right, well, Kyrie, you got to be able to respond better, right? But then I started thinking, if I look, we're in Boston. So let's just start there.
Now we're in Boston. So Boston is not the most minority-friendly place in America.
Correct.
And Kyrie's been gone like 3 years.
Right. And so we're in Boston. You would imagine most of the heckling is coming from the rows that are closest to the court. So very high economic status.
It's a money
so
there.
when the camera pans, I don't see a ton of diversity in those rows. So we're just gonna unpack it a little bit.
Okay.
And then he left on not so great terms. So they have just a pure incentive to not be Kyrie fans in the audience. And so you've been to sporting events, and people say some stuff.
They do.
Right. And then I guess you probably drinking. I'm guessing that we're sitting in these first few rows and feeling a little saucy on Easter Sunday, first round of the playoffs. So at first I was just like, oh, Kyrie, you just won't stop, will you? And then I started thinking to myself, why is it just because he's rich and playing a game in front of people and they bought a ticket, do people feel like they can say whatever they want to say to him? Or to any athlete, but we're talking about him this morning, or today, right? And so I'm like, I might be okay with him flipping them off.
And it doesn't have to be personal.
No.
Now, if you cheering, you rooting, you giving heckling him a hard time, but a lot of times these situations become personal. Now, you don't know that man.
Right. And so he said something I thought was really interesting in his post game. He said a lot of times I look at them and see if they bought it. He said most of the time they're not.
Yeah.
But it's going to be some fan that is not going to be satisfied until somebody drag them for real.
And they go, and you get what you get.
You get what you get. And so I would love for Kyrie to elevate amongst the fray like any other athlete. But if he don't, I think I might understand, depending on what's been said.
Yeah, because, you'll have everybody out there speaking, you should be bigger than that. You don't do this anything else. Sometimes you just need to leave people alone.
That's right.
Or you get what you get.
What you get. That's right.
It's time for another edition of The Manual. So it's The Manual. Thank you so much for being with us. Make sure that you like and subscribe. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Yes. So by all means, look for The Manual, the number 4, and the letter U. The Manual for you. And it's been an exciting time just delving into topics that are men specific. You know, they may cross some lines, but just
right.
talk about some of the things that men deal with, because we have a forum for things where they are achievement related.
That's right.
But sometimes we don't always talk about our personal issues and some of the stuff that we think about as men.
That's right.
So the last time we were together, we were talking about relationships. Are you with me because of who I am or for what I have? You know,
yep.
just kind of getting into that and trying to figure out what do you do under those circumstances in those relationships.
That's right.
And got some traction concerning that. So we're going to continue along those lines, and I know that you had looked up some articles, some information that you saw about relationships.
I did, and just to back up a bit from our last session, one of the things that I want to be super sensitive about, or we want to be super sensitive about, is the fact that we're talking to multiple different generations and backgrounds and experiences, right? And I think we've reached a point in our lives where we're very settled, right, in our marriages and in our thought pattern.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we can pretend as though we weren't
right
in a different place at a different point in our life.
Extremely discombobulated.
That's right. And you know, our opening segment, we talked about Kyrie Irving, and to be honest with you, you know, when we look at generations deal with things differently, right? I mean, we look at some of the players who played basketball when, you know, when segregation was a thing. And they might have been cussed out and spat on and all kind of slurs, and they stayed professional, right? Absolutely. And so that shapes how we think you're supposed to rise above a circumstance.
Right. We even when President Obama ascended to that office, he kept emphasizing we go high, you know, they go low, because that's the generation that he came in.
That's right. But we got a different generation.
Different generation.
So again, the Kyrie scenario. Kyrie wants all the smoke. You know, and
as John Morant said, we not only want the smoke, we coming down the chimney.
Coming down the chimney. And I got to be honest with you. For my first reaction to things are no, go high. But then when I kind of really look at it, I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of okay with the smoke too. Go ahead, you know. So similarly, relationship. You know, we think about things based on how we were raised and the season in which we were raised, right? And so you know, the goals might have been wife and 2.5 children and white picket fence and all of those things, right? And we, I think, have to recognize that different generations may not have the same values. Right.
They don't even have some of the same aspirations. Right. So now what we have to figure out is how do we address the generation with truth?
Correct.
Because it doesn't have to look like what people did previously, but it does need to be based on truth, what is right to do.
Correct. And so one article I found is called "The Science of Happily Ever After and How Millennials Beat the Odds to Find Love," and it was an interesting question and kind of response in the first couple paragraphs, and it says, does happily ever after even exist? Right. And it says it's a fair question from a group of young people who watched almost 50% of their parents' generation divorce, another 10% permanently separate, and another 7% remain in unhappy marriages. And so if you just lump all that together, that's 67%.
That's a lot.
Right. That's 2/3. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think, again, we grew up at a time where divorce was not as popular. And even if people were unhappy, they stayed together and just kind of worked their way through it. And now there's generations that don't see that, right? And so we come up here and say, this is what you should do. We have to be sensitive to the fact that they've seen and grown up in situations that we didn't necessarily grow up in.
Because they're going to ask the question, why?
That's right.
If it's going to fail, then
that's
why?
Right. Because we know that now, what is true, the truth. What is true is we all want to love and be loved.
That's true.
That is absolutely true.
That is true.
Right. So we all have the same desire. The barriers that we have to hop over to get to it are different, though.
Right. I'll agree with that.
Yep. And so how do we help young people navigate maybe a much more negative opinion of relationships based on the experience that they've had?
So the hard part is going to be getting credible examples in front of them.
That's right.
You know, we've got to have more credible examples of people that have had good relationships and talk about the tough things that happened in their relationships.
That's right.
But they still had good ones. I think a lot of times what we do is we don't tell people about the trials that we had in a relationship letting them know that you can still have a good one, even though you go through a season of difficulty.
That's right.
And so what we see now is people who get in their season of difficulty and they quit because they don't ever believe that it's going to get better.
That's right.
So we just kind of trade off and switch off and do everything. And now it's so popular to not only have multiple relationships, but multiple same-sex relationships. It was unheard of in our days to have bisexual relationships where you had a couple of different relations. But it's real different now.
That's right.
So I think that if we can show that we, like you said, can love, can be loved, talk about the difficulties that we're in, and then show them how to navigate those difficulties. Because there is no relationship ever that won't have a moment of difficulty.
That's right. You're right about that. You're right about that. And knowing a person and common ground is what can help you get through those difficulties, which also brings me to another unique space that I never experienced. But even the way we meet each other is different now. So I like you, so I send you a direct message on social media.
Right.
Or I'm subscribed to Tinder or Christian Mingle or
Black
things
Love.
Black Love and I'm not saying any of that to be negative. I'm just saying it's different because in our day you only got to meet the person by walking up to them and starting to talk to them. And so your very initial reaction was to some degree authentic, or interaction, not reaction. Interaction was authentic and real and whatever that meant. Whereas right now, you might meet first a picture and a caption is your introduction to a person that then starts to unfold in a different way.
It's real. It's like, okay, you go on the site, hey, I want to go with somebody, type your information in. Yeah. You pay to meet people now.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
It's real different from our generation where it's like, hey, you see somebody over there, like, what's your name?
That's right.
You get instant rejection.
Instant rejection. Instant.
Right. It's either instant rejection or instant connection.
But it's instant either way.
It is instant, yeah. But now it's like, I can search through all of these and see, okay,
pick that one. I'm in kind of in queue, waiting on them to respond.
And of course now we also have the catfishing phenomenon where it's like you present yourself as one person and then end up being somebody else. But it is still interesting that people want relationship. Relationship is important.
They do. The interesting part about, now the one critique, but I don't want to be the old man on this topic, but the one critique I will have on maybe our mechanism of meeting now is the superficial nature of it. And here's what I mean by that. Our topic is, do you love me or do you love what I bring? So when I find you on Instagram, I'm finding your glamour shot. I'm finding carefully placed images that imply your worth and what you have. And so I'm actually starting to learn more about what you do and bring before I learn about you.
Right. And I can disqualify you because of what I see and never having got the opportunity to know you.
Correct.
To see if all of this kind of works together.
And so the importance of those superficial things now elevates because it's my initial exposure to you. So if I met you and talked to you, I might start liking you even though you broke.
Right.
But if I see the picture of you with the stacks of money, now that becomes a certain expectation and a certain attraction even before I get to know you.
Right.
And so now it shapes the way I get to know you.
Right.
Right.
Right. You end up now you bring in what the gold digger syndrome. Who was that? I was going to say EPMD. I can't remember who it was that did the song Gold Digger.
Kanye West.
Kanye did one too, but there's another rap group that did that. I'm sure y'all can comment and tell us whatever it is, because I can't think of it now. But now what I thought was interesting when we were kind of looking at this thing, there's an article on WebMD about what is a gold digger. I was just blown away. Right.
It's an infectious disease.
Right. They got. You can go to the pharmacy and pick up.
Get vaccinated against gold digger.
I thought it was crazy. But now they gave us some signs that I thought were very interesting. That people gonna have to pay attention to. So signs of a gold digger: they only appreciate expensive gifts.
Go ahead, never mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, I saw where that was going, but we're gonna keep moving forward. Their friends are gold diggers. They are immediately and frequently curious about your financial situation. They never pay. Now, so when I was dating my wife, when we really dated, because we dated off and on for some time, but when we really started dating, so. I was always trying to make sure I was in a position that if we went out and did anything,
That's right.
I was in a position to pay. Because she's a quality woman, there were times she'd be like, no, let me do this. And so, so it wasn't a situation where it's like, okay, you're never going to pay, and I always.
Right.
If you have somebody who never wants to contribute and is always saying, okay, you take care of that, you might want to keep moving.
You might.
They are very jealous. You gotta be careful of that, because that's how they separate
That's right.
people, so that they can isolate you. They manipulate others with their sexuality. That would be called a prostitute.
A gold digging prostitute. We can just call it a high end escort.
Right. Escort. That's
Escort,
what it is.
yeah.
New generation.
Yeah.
Obsessed with status. A ladder climber. They're out of your own league.
Clout chaser.
Who chases?
Clout chaser.
Yeah, right. Y'all, now, and so to that point, we gotta be real careful about trying to become power couples.
Yes.
If you just happen to be one because of your situation or whatever it is, that's cool. But to try to become one,
Funniest thing to me, relationship goals. How we get these pictures of famous couples and we label them relationship goals.
really,
I think Will and Jada was a relationship goal at one point.
yeah.
Anyway, carry on. Sorry, carry on.
So they have a sense of entitlement. Always feeling like I'm supposed to. Now that kind of gets on my nerves
It
a little
does.
bit. When
It
you see
does.
people out in restaurants and other places and act like, you're supposed to serve me. It's like, no, they're a customer service representative, and there is an amount of service that they would give, but everybody should be respectful towards one another.
Yeah.
So anyway, but the main thing is how to establish if somebody is a gold digger, because you need to be careful about people that they all into you. What happens if you don't have what it is that they want? How does the relationship go then?
Right.
We know about a story of a man who had everything and lost it all. And it emotionally and mentally affected his wife. To the point she was like, "This, I can't take this anymore." But I think what's real interesting, we don't talk a lot about how that relationship still held on through the midst of what had to be the worst time in their lives.
Right.
And then they ended up having children after that, and got back twice as much as they had before, because they were willing to deal with the rough parts.
Exactly. As you were reading, and I guess I should make an assumption. I'd love to hear from the audience. Are we attracted to gold diggers? And here's
They kind of build us up.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm also asking that question because I remember, we're gonna back up a little bit. I mean, we were okay with creeping at certain hours of the night with certain type of women, but there were some women we weren't gonna wife up, But nowadays we marry strippers and video vixens and people that we didn't mind laying with. We just didn't want to marry.
You
or
weren't
publicly claim.
Yeah, you weren't gonna be on my arm
Right.
going to events and things like that.
Right.
And
So maybe gold digging is a positive attribute for somebody right now. I don't know, but my point is, if we go back to what we said, truth, we all want to love and be loved, and that is in a genuine and authentic and sincere way, right? Love is not once I lose my job we get divorced. That's not love, right? That's loving what I do and what I provide, but not me, right? And so as I think about it, it's still funny to me that WebMD
it's
has
amazing.
gold digger as an infectious disease. It doesn't really say that disease part, but the fact that it's there should tell you
from a medical standpoint to even address that,
right?
Yeah.
But so now, if let's just make the assumption that you're not looking for a gold digger, then if you're not looking for a gold digger, the question you have to ask yourself is, so what attributes of yourself do you highlight in your social media? Because you know, we all got that friend, and some people are a little more subtle than others, right? We all have those friends who, the moment they get something, they want to plaster it on social media. But what they do, so you got some, right? Some who are a little more out there than others, and you got others who are a little more slick, right? And so what they'll do is they'll get the new car and they'll put it in the driveway and they'll pose for a picture with the car as the background. You know,
to let you know.
Yeah. So, and the picture caption is going to be about whatever they want you to believe the focus of the picture is, right? But I say all of that to say gold diggers don't miss that.
Right.
They see the emblem.
Right.
And the emblem can be right in the crevice between something, but they can find the emblem.
Look at what he drives.
Yeah, exactly. And so now, if you're not looking for a gold digger, then what do you highlight in your social media feeds and pages and accounts? Something to think about.
You're right. And then, you know, the flip side is, as you're letting everybody know what it is you have, you know, is that your attraction? It's like, okay, I want somebody who to come want and see what it is that I have, not knowing that could turn into a whole mess.
Yeah.
So I think that when as we consider relationships, you have to, you know, it's good to find somebody that has some kind of substance, that they have things going on outside of the relationship that's not just all relationship focused.
That's right.
You know, because normally if you find somebody who has a focus that is beyond you, your relationship doesn't become the whole world, and so it doesn't always be about you and what you have.
That's right.
What's going on outside of the house?
That's right.
So that's one of the things you can kind of get into and say, okay, what am I doing beyond you? Am I living? Am I working? Do I have some other goals beyond you? So I'm not looking for you to fulfill all of my material needs.
That's right.
In this relationship. That's what I would think.
Yeah, I think, and I'll share a couple of points before we close out today. But I referenced the article, "The Science of Happily Ever After." It's actually, I guess, a book, and it's based on the premise that good relationships come from choosing good partners. I think that's a very fair statement.
That's
right?
fair.
It's the author says, "I do not promise love in 10 days or the one secret to finding your soulmate, but instead provide a framework and methods for assessing the traits that really matter while choosing a partner." Right? As I've talked about the book with university students around the country, I've realized that millennials have certain tendencies that are already changing the way we date, and that there are a few things we can learn from them. Here are a few lessons. Number one, be clear about your goal.
Okay.
Be clear, right? Now, he goes on to say, it sounds obvious that singles need a goal, but previous generations often felt trapped by narrow societal views of marriage. Millennials are generally more open to diversity, which has broadened our views on what can be a happy marriage, including changes in beliefs about gender roles, support of gay marriage, and more favorable attitudes about interracial marriage. And so, gender roles. We grew up, husband goes out, works, provides, wife stays home, raises the kids, right? That's not the role scenario that this current generation is operating in, right? And so now, as a woman, wanting a husband who can provide in a previous generation had to be top of the list,
right?
Because otherwise the roles don't work.
My wife told me, she said that there were several situations when she was in college that there were girls that went to college just to find a husband.
Just to find a husband.
They weren't going to really get a degree. They were going to find, okay, well, who's my husband?
That's right. That's right. One of the things we probably need to talk about is the importance of marriage to begin with at some point, because I think what we're seeing is people are valuing the relationship more than the institution of marriage, and are willing to just be in the relationship in some generations. So maybe we can tackle that. Point two, be smart. It says millennials are generally optimistic, but they delight in smart, contrarian views of cultural standards, right? They eagerly latch on to research findings that demonstrate how holding on to fairy tale notions of the beautiful princess, powerful prince, and fate delivering a soulmate actually make it less likely that one's love story will end happily ever after. So they come with a very different angle there. And then find undervalued traits. Millennials do not want fate to provide the answer. They want to find an answer through their own resourcefulness. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're working with here.
Right.
Right? And so we might need to dig into those a little bit more.
Yeah, to try to see how we can help our
Yep.
millennial brothers out there to figure out what it is to do, because there's some things that are solid in there, but there are also some things that you need to consider outside of that
That's
to
right.
have a great relationship, to come to a great relationship. Now, some of y'all players, y'all done had this girl around for 6-7 years. Look, either put her on lock, as my wife would say, pee or get off the toilet. You better put it on lock or
Yep.
just finish, man. Learn how to be a finisher. If you've been with her that long,
That's right.
marry her.
Right.
Just
And the hard truth is, ladies, if he won't make the decision, you need to.
yeah. You make a decision.
You make it.
So
You make it. Because many of us made the decision because
yeah.
of a little intensity or fire being lit
Right.
under us, if we can be honest.
Because as a man, what I know is that if she's worth it, then, and I'm about to lose it, then I'm gonna do
gonna
whatever
put a
it
ring
is
on
that I
it.
have to do, to put her on lock.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
So great conversation.
Great conversation. That's right.
So look, don't forget, like, subscribe, share.
Comment.
The manual for you. Put your comments in. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know where you are, so that we can continue this conversation as we move forward. This is the manual. He's the Professor Woods. I'm Chip Rice, and we'll see you next time.